All right, welcome. This is Nuke Marine presenting Let's Read Japanese, course series for the reading of Japanese text alongside its audio counterpart. Today's episode is Time Taxi,素敵な選TAXI, episode 7, part 2. So yeah, second part of this. If all goes well, this will be released on YouTube September the 20th, Monday, September the 20th. So there you go. All right, yesterday should have been the premiere episode for this stretch of videos. Alrighty, not much to it. This is actually a video. I've actually liked this particular episode. It's funny. It's kind of leans on the GTO vibe or about how someone who was like in a gang in their youth and then they became some productive member of society, but they still lean upon the tough, no nonsense, straightforward attitude they had when dealing with problems. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Goksen, for example, horrible. I am not a fan of that particular drama. I'm a fan of every episode, the first half of every episode. I'm a fan of that because that's the comedic aspect. The second half of every episode, where it goes in drama, not a fan. It always ends in the same manner. Kind of like why I don't really like Sambiki, uh, Oji-san or something like that. Three old guys, where it's again very similar, where it's comedic in the first half. They do the drama part, and it just ends in the same thing, them all having a fight, and because they win a fight, apparently that solves all the problems in the world. Again, it's Goksen for the geriatric crowd. Whereas GTO, I like how he approached it. He wasn't looking to solve problems. He was looking to just help the kids out, and whether or not it was created other problems, he didn't care, and it did. Like I said, it wasn't episodic. I mean, it was serialized, so it was a full story that made it enjoyable. Similar with Rookies, it was serialized. It was a very enjoyable story. Um, though the Goksen wasn't serial, it was basically episodic. Everyone was kind of standalone, and yeah, she kind of always was getting. Each one was about a different character in the story, but yeah, it was. If you can watch them in order, it didn't really matter, and it was bad. Um, okay, so with that said, yeah, it's a good episode. It's funny so far, and yeah, it still stays that way. This is pretty good in that, yeah, they start with comedy and still think they keep it comedy. Sometimes they get a little dark in a few of the choices, but again, they kind of fix it at the end. So it is lighthearted. I mean, I think it's definitely fit for people of all ages. Um, and yeah, this is just a funny episode. Um, some of them are kind of slow and whatnot, but like the one with the grandfather, yeah, it was kind of depressing, but it was enjoyable. Watch it. It was yeah, it was enjoyable. Okay, with that said, let's get started. Okay, going back a little bit. Where's the other earpiece? But should catch up pretty well. Gonna start roughly around the 21-minute mark.
そういえば彼氏さんはなんかトラブル？
はい。
え、お客さん元ヤンだったんですか？
元ヤン。
ま
全然そんな風に見えない。
あ、
ああ、それで彼氏は話が違うって怒って帰っちゃったと。
そうですね。
なるほど。もっと早く話せばよかったのに。
嫌われるんじゃないかって思ったらなかなか言えなくて。
そうかな、嫌われるかな。
嫌われますよ。
まあ気持ちはわかりますけどね。人には誰しも一つや二つ言えない過去があるもんです。これ別に私がパシリとかそういうことを言ってるわけじゃないですよ。
he's Let me see if there's maybe read that and maybe more on that. No, they're not doing it as a Japanese definition. So it's just a shiri とかそういうことを言ってるわけじゃないんでしょ。
そういうことを言ってるわけじゃないですよ。
言ってるわけじゃないんでしょう。
はい。
そもそもパシリじゃなかったしね。
はい。
まあそれはいいんですけど、やっぱり順番が違いましたね。
順番。
両親には先にこれまでのことをちゃんと謝って、その上でお願いするべきだったんじゃないですかね。
やっぱりそうですよね。
そうですよ。勝手に悪者にされたらいくらなんでも怒りますよ。
ですよね。ああ、間違えちゃった。
戻ります？
え？
もう一度実家に。
今戻ったと遅いですよ。
それが遅くないんですよ。
どういうことですか？
説明しましょう。
All right, here we go. How are they doing it for this one? Uh-huh. Well, that was kind of quick.
本当に？
もちろんそれなりにお金はいただきますけど。
はあ。
どこまで戻りましょう？
じゃあ実家に着いたあたりから。
了解です。
I always liked it when I like the parts where they're actually explaining it. I get it's repetitive, but the scenery is always different. It's like, is it the game of life? Is it on the billboards? What were some other ones it did? God, I'm already forgetting. But it's or a video game. So yeah, it was kind of creative when they were doing it that way. But I can get it. Like, hey, it's getting repetitive. They don't want to do it each and every time. So yeah.
30分くらい前だったかな、確か。
そうですね。運転手さん。
はい。
ちなみになんですけど、このタクシー10代の頃に戻ってそこから人生やり直すこともできるんですか？
何年前ですか
10年前。
Very expensive.
できますよ。
うっそ。
ただあまりおすすめはしません。
どうして？
なんていうか、今のお客さんの状況っていろんな巡り合わせが重なって成り立ってると思うんですよ。それは
I mean, it's like, I'm assuming that's when your travels meeting up with something, but let me make sure. Oh, Wheel of Fortune. 偶然そうなること、運命、回り合わせ。Okay. 巡り合わせが重なって成り立ってると思うんですよ。
それはいろんな巡り合わせが重なって成り立ってると思うんですよ。それはいいことも悪いことも全部ね。仮にお客さんが、10年前に戻って暴走族に入らない選択肢を選んだとしましょう。そうした場合、
I like how they say Judai instead of 10 years. The teens, basically return to the teens. But I guess for her it'd be, I would think more than 10 years ago, but since she was in high school. Anyway.
そう暴走族に入らない、10年前に戻って暴走族に入らない選択肢を選んだとしましょう。そうした場合、暴走族の過去が消えるだけじゃなく、当然他にもいろんな変化が出てきます。それによってもっと悲惨な人生になる可能性だってあるんですよ。
Another.
それによってもっと悲惨な人生になる可能性だってあるんですよ。
悲惨な人生？
人生遡って根底から変えるには。
Oh, now this one I haven't seen before. Sakanoboru. Sakanoboru. Let me see some real quick.
悲惨？
それによって
悲惨な人生？
人生遡って
遡って水流れさかれて進む going with the flow, go upstream. Yeah, sakarao. It does feel like, I mean, it's like, because you kind of say it's like sakarao, but this has the additional. I wonder if that's like the older form of that. Go back in time, trace back, retroactive. Sakanobotte. Now let's look at that kanji. It's not, there's no frequency number for it. But it is in remembering the kanji. It's not a complicated one. To go upstream, retrace. It's not a complicated kanji. Sakanobotte, sakanoboru.
人生遡って根底から変えるにはそれなりのリスクも 覚悟しなければなりません。
なるほど。
Oh, by the way, it would kind of be the same like if you made a different choice, but if you couldn't keep a memory of your previous choice. So, whereas in this case, they all seem to retain a memory. So if you go back, let's say 10 years, they retain the memory of their experiences, even of their previous choices, which means also they get to keep their previous experiences. So that would be a different case than if you went back in time and had a different choice. Well, now you still got 10 years of all these other bad choices to make, and it could be worse because you didn't have the initial bad choice, the experience that came with it, to build on that. Yeah, it's either here or there, but yeah, no, it's just something some people think about. Plus, the whole thing like if you go back in time, especially have children, then obviously no matter what you do, smallest little thing you do just changes who your children are going to be, just because of how sperm work. I mean, and eggs work. That's just you're going to have different children. If anyone who has like fraternal twins know like the difference between just two different sperms and two different eggs. Again, same pregnancy, but radically different kids. I mean, they're obviously your children and whatnot, because even identical twins kind of have slightly differences, and that's just but that's congenital because of the development within the womb. But less so. They might have more similar personalities or whatnot. But again, they're siblings, and so that's what you have. You won't have the same child. You have a different child. It'd be like a brother or a sister they never had. You know, different experiences that all go with that. Because again, personalities and all the developments are going to be slightly different. There's that, and yeah, who knows what else is added into it. That's just the minor. I mean, that's just with just the smallest of changes. That's the immediate thing. You're not going to have the same children. That's just not going to happen. What if you? That's going to, and so everything driving from the history is going to be radically altered, and it's going to become much more and more pronounced. We're not again. This is just a yeah. I mean, that's just the butterfly effect there. That's uh, but beyond that. Uh, Yeah, there's some other things as well. But like I said, we're just talking about just choice. And that's whether we went back in time with your memory. You cannot have the same children. That's just going to be impossible. Just because you're doing things is slightly different. Even if you know it, you cannot perfectly retrace your steps. That's just going to be impossible. All right. Anyway, with that said, let's keep going.
しかもそれくらい戻るには
Where are we at? Okay.
それなりのリスクも覚悟しなければなりません。
なるほど。
しかもそれくらい戻るには17億円かかります。
$17 million to go back just 10 years.
30分前でお願いします。
了解しました。
You know what though? Here's the most fucked up thing is that Bezos. That's like not even a day's. Let's see. He definitely. I think he makes that a day, if not more than that. I mean, yeah. Usually a billionaire can make about. Expect a billionaire to make about $1 million a day. Yeah, it's close to that. I think around 3 billion. I think that's when you get the just for the gain, just the standard gains of value of their stocks and other assets that they hold. That's just, yeah, again. So 17. That's like would he spend a day's worth of that he doesn't even have to work for. That's just the money that he gets from just existing. Just the money he gets for existing. No effort on his part. He could spend that to go back in time 10 years. He would do it. He would no problem do it. He spent much more than that probably just to park his just to go up 56, not even 56 miles, like a couple, 20 or 30 miles up into space, take space. There's probably a very minor atmosphere up there. And I don't know, maybe I would say it doesn't count as space if it's as thin as Mars' atmosphere. If it's thicker than that, then it's not really, well, I'm pretty sure you went higher than that. Yeah. It doesn't matter. He was a passenger. He wasn't an astronaut, so who cares? It's like, oh, wow, flew in the airplane. Okay, you're a passenger. Okay.
ご乗車ありがとうございます。
Oh, the video. Okay. Oh, that's cute.
これから安全のためにビデオをご覧いただきます。皆様必ずご覧ください。シートベルトはしっかりと締めてください。突
Oh, wait. Oh, this isn't even in there. Okay.
然の揺れに備えて常に着用してください。お休みの際もお願いいたします。タイムスリップ中は窓から顔を出さないでください。
これって必ずしも見ないといけないやつですか？
まあそういうのあった方が特別感が出るかなって。
じゃあ別に見なくてもいいわけですね。もう出してもらえますか？
あ、はい。はい、到着しましたよ。
もう？でもなんか
タイムスリップ感がないからピンとこない？
はい。
それは性能がいいからですよ。
そうなんですか？
ええ、今時グイーンなんてなるやつ乗ってたらね、笑われますよ。
へえ。
そこに等身大パネルあるんで、それどけてそこに立ってくださいね。そこから始まりますんで。
はい。その説明 DVD に入ってないんですね。
あ、
そこ立てばいいんですね。
Well, maybe it was in there and she turned it off before it got to that part.
はい。まあ何かあったら私その辺にいるんで、いつでも言ってください。じゃあ行こうか。
私先に行ってくるからここで待ってて。
大丈夫？
大丈夫。まずはきちんと自分から話したいの。
そっか、分かった。
ごめんね、呼びに来るまでちょっと待ってて。
お父さん、そろそろお茶にしよっか。
ああ、そうしよ
ただいま。
Mm.
お久しぶりです。
マリ
お父さんお母さん、ごめんなさい。散々迷惑かけて挙句家出までして、今更戻ってきて許してほしいなんて都合がいいのは分かってます。だけどこのままじゃいけないと思って、とにかくごめんなさい。
Mm.
マリ、とにかく入れや。元気でやってるのか？元気でやってるのか？そうか。仕事は？
東京の IT の会社で働いてる。
そうか。
Mm.
本当にごめんなさい。
よく帰ってきたな。もう帰ってこないと思ってたよ。
Mm.
で、いつまで入れるんだ？
仕事あるから今日は一回帰る。
そうか。
それでね、もう一つ報告があるの。本当に都合のいいこと言ってるのは分かってるんだけど、お願い、昔のことは。
分かった。
いいの？
お前はそれでいいのか？じゃあ話くらい合わせてやる。
ありがとう。
彼氏どこにいるんだ？
今外で待ってるから連れてくる。あきらく
どうか結婚のお許しをいただけないでしょうか。
娘を幸せにしてやってください。
幸せにしてやってください。
ありがとうございます。
ございます。
全然イメージと違ったよ。
そう？
お父さんもお母さんもすごく優しそうでいい人だった。
自分クロワッサンで9代目の頭を張らせてもらってる。
クロワッサンで9代目。
黒田陽子です。自分クロワッサンで9代目の頭を張らせてもらってる黒田陽子です。よろしく。
やめてやめて。
先ほどうちの若いのが大西さんに無礼を働いたと聞きまして。
いやいやいや。
知り合いだった。
いや。
まさか初代総長だとは思わなかったみたいで、本当に申し訳ありません。
ふざけんなよ。
大西さんの伝説はうちらの中で今でも語り継がれています。
伝説。
はい。まず言う
Okay. It's still funny. I've seen this a couple of times, and yeah, it's still funny. Anyway, what was I trying to look for? Oh, Katari. Katari Suzu. Katari Sugana. Sugarete.
伝説。
うちらの中で今でも語り継がれています。
伝説。
Katari Sugarete imasu. Yes, Katari Suzu. Here, say it one more time. Katari Suzu. Katari Sugarete imasu.
伝説。
はい。まず有名なのが台湾弁当珍伝説。
Taiman bento. I assume that's like a microwave meal, but one to one. Taiman bento chin. Oh, okay. Taiman, one to one. Taiman. Wonder what it's a reference to. Let's see if we get a. That's negligence. Taiman. Okay, chito niguriai. Okay, that. Huh. So it's an actual. Okay, let's look at that. Agony. That is. That looks like an old form. Okay, that's maybe an old way of doing it. I'm guessing. I never seen this kanji before. It's not complicated. I mean, you can look at me. It says hitorito, instead of it being 20. Maybe that's what they do differently. Yeah, it feels like it's that. Maybe that's. I feel like it's an old version of that of Decameron. Decameron. No, not Decameron, but Hegemon. Yeah. Taiman. Taiman.
まず有名なのが台湾弁当珍伝説。
台湾弁当珍です。What do we have?
当時コンビニのレジで喧嘩を売ってきた敵チームの幹部を外に引きずり出し、
幹部。
弁当を売ってきた敵チームの幹部を外に引きずり出し、弁当を温めて数十秒間でノックアウトし、弁当を受け取ってきた敵チームの幹部、当時コンビニのレジで喧嘩を売ってきた敵チームの幹部を外に引きずり出し、弁当を温めて数十秒間でノックアウトし、弁当を受け取って帰る。他にはバースデータイマン伝説。
バスデータイマン。
毎年自分の誕生日に年の数だけタイマンを張って回る恒例行事。他にもあげたらキリがあります。毎年自分の誕生日に年の数だけタイマンを張って回る恒例行事。
恒例行事。恒例行事。恒例。Established custom. 恒例行事。
年の数だけタイマンを張って回る恒例行事。
Make sure about that again. 恒例 Gyoji. It sounds like saying Kyoji instead of Gyoji. Let me hear that again.
年の数だけ怠慢を張って回る恒例行事。
恒例行事。I'll say Gyoji. 恒例行事。
他にもあげたらキリがありません。
誰切り。
もうお前らふざけんなよ。
あの子たちお詫びに来ちゃったんだ。
私があの時初代だって言っちゃったもんだから。
なるほど。でどこに戻ります？
とりあえず今度はもっと前、駅で彼女たちと会う前に。
じゃあ1時間前ですね。このタクシーは全席禁煙です。緊急の時、このタクシーは全席禁煙です。緊急の時はシートベルトをしっかり締め、衝撃に備える姿勢をとってください。
これも大丈夫です。
え？
さっき見たんで。
快適なタイムトラベルをお楽しみください。そうですか。あ、じゃあわかりました。ちょっと待ってくださいね。
ちょっと待ってくださいね。やった。
これは
？Oh。
これは？
これ結構タイムスリップ感ありません？さあ、車も綺麗になったし、行きましょう。
Well, I haven't gone through a car wash in like forever. Man, like a long time. Just haven't had to drive in a long time. All right, anyway, keep going.
のどかでいいところだね。
Nodoka. And oh yeah, that was the refreshing feeling. Maybe I'm trying to remember. Odayaka. So
もうバス来てる。早く行こ
sorry.
う。もうバス来てる。
のどかでいいところだね。
There we go. Okay. Anyway, all right. So it's long and why am I forgetting? Leisure. That's leisure. So long leisure. Odayaka de nobi nobi to kimochi yoku sugoseru yoso-sama. Okay. Tenki ga yoku. Yeah, yeah. Good, quiet, good weather, tranquil. Yeah, there we go. Tranquil, kwamao, kodoku na. And it's not a complicated kanji group. You know, it's like leisure. So long leisure. Nodoka. Okay. Easy word to remember. I'm going to forget it though. But, yeah.
のどかでいいところだね。
もうバス来てる。早く行こう。
Wait. Why did he go back and take the photo? Why did he take the photo again? He should have waited.
運転手さんごめんなさい。なんとか切り抜けて。てめえ何見たってんだよ。
Oh, wait.
あ、そっか、こっからか。うわ、しくった。撮ってませんよ。選択肢で過去に戻った場合、
撮ってませんよ。
選択肢を選び直せるのはあくまでも乗客であり、運転手はそのままの行動しかできない。運転手は選択肢で過去に戻った場合、選択肢を選び直せるのはあくまでも乗客であり、運転手はそのままの行動しかできない。したがってこの場合、私は分かっていながらもう一度レディースたちに絡まれなければならない。
せーの来いよ。
そっか、マリさんたちこっち来ないんだ。嘘、こっち来ない選択にしたの？
Sorry.
勘弁してくださいよ。ちょっと。
やがって。
It's like I get it's not meant to be it's not meant to be like a stuntman video. So yeah, the kicks are like definitely like a foot apart. Even the angle is like not very good for that. But again, it's cute. This waitress. Actually, you don't see her waiting on him too much. She's just always at the counter with the boss, talking about the movie or TV shows, the TV shows that are on. They all fall down in sequence.
大丈夫ですか？っていうか枝分かれさん、どうしてこんなとこにいるんですか？
いや、かんなちゃんもどうしてここにいるの？
私はここが地元なんですよ。
あ、そうなんだ。
はい。お前誰だよ。ちょっと待っててくださいね。
Ah, don't. Yeah, okay.
お前らクロワッサンだろ。
Croissant, right?
お前らじゃ話になんないから頭連れてこいよ。
Well,
お前らクロワッサンだろ。お前らじゃ話になんないから頭連れてこいよ。
かんなちゃん、もういいって。
カンナ？カンナってもしかして関カンナ？てめえ何呼び捨てしてんだよ。すんぞだこ。すいません。
Minchini Sunzo. Minchini. Zakko. And that is Zakko, right? Yeah. Jacko.
てめえ何呼び捨てしてんだよ。ミンチにすんぞだこ。すいません。六代目総長の関カンナさん。
クロワッサン史上最も凶暴と恐れられていた。
最も凶暴。うん。最も凶暴を恐れられていた悪魔のカンちゃん。
悪魔。クロワッサン史上最も凶暴と恐れられていた悪魔のカンちゃんこと六代目総長関カンナ。
ストライク取ってこい。
人間ボールストライク伝説カンちゃん。
ボールストライク伝説。
人間ボールストライク伝説カンちゃん専用車両伝説など数。
Special vehicle? Hang on. Private car. 専用車用。
人間ボールストライク伝説カンちゃん専用車両伝説など数々の伝説を残し、大西まりと並んで地元では伝説とされる最強の女。
Let's hear that one more time.
ストライク取ってこい。
人間ボールストライク伝説カンちゃん専用車両伝説など数々の伝説を残し、大西まりと並んで地元では伝説とされる最強の女。
かなちゃん、レディースだったの？
So I assume that's the sound for neck crack. The neck crack. Nasukota ba. Mm-hmm. It's not saying. Huh, okay.
レディースだ。
申し訳ありません。勘弁してください。まあ後輩だし許してやるよ。枝分かれさん、怪我ないですか？ 当に都合のいいこと言ってるのは分かってるんだけど、お願い、昔のことは。
お前はそれでいいのか。じゃあ話くらい合わせてやる。
あきらくん、
どうか結婚のお許しをいただけないでしょうか。
娘を幸せにしてやってください。
ありがとうございます。全然イメージと違ったよ。
そう？
お父さんもお母さんもすごく優しそうでいい人だった。
そうだね。
じゃあ行こうか。
ナイト。
次の電車まで少し時間あるね。
あ、うん。お父さん、お母さん。
明さん、娘のこと頼みます。
はい。
私らは親として何一つしてやれなかったんで、この子は素直で優しい子です。大事にしてやってください。
お父さんお母さん、こちらこそ今後ともよろしくお願いします。
マリ、また帰ってこい。
待ってるからね。
いいご両親だね。
うん。
きっと昔のことを悪いと思ってんだろうね。
毎日バカなことやってんじゃないよ。
ああそうか、じゃあ出てくよ。ああそうか、じゃあ出てくよ。さようなら。
ああ、二度と帰ってくんな。
すいませんでした。
触るなっつってんの。
話くらい合わせてやる。お前はそれでいいのか。
待ってるからね。
娘を幸せにしてやってください。
じゃあ行こうか。
ごめん。やっぱりこのままじゃダメだ。
何が？
ごめん。
何？マリ？
ていうか陽子元気そうじゃん。運転手さん。
マリさん。
すいません。乗せてください。
え？あ、はい。またバレたんですか？
すべてうまくいきました。
え？じゃあいいじゃないですか。
いえ、やっぱりこんなの良くないって思って。
良くないとは？
彼に嘘をつき続けることもそうだし、自分のために親まで自分の嘘に付き合わせたことも全部。
なるほど。でどうしましょ
1時間前に戻ってもらえますか？
う？いいですけど、戻ってどうするんですか？
まず彼に正直に全部話します。その後両親に謝りに行きます。
なるほど。
It's not too bad.
結婚はダメになるかもしれませんけど、このまま彼を騙し続けて暮らしてもそれは良くないことだと思うので。
了解しました。
どうしました？
これ戻る必要あります？
え？
戻らずに今から全部話せばいいじゃないですか。
いやでもそれだともうみんなにすでに迷惑かけちゃってるから。
だったらそれも含めて謝ればいいじゃないですか。確かに今回の件、正直に話すのなら最初からそうすればよかった話です。ただだからって最初に戻るのはなんか違う気がするんですよ。本当に彼と両親に申し訳ない思いと 全てを正直に話して謝る覚悟があるんだったら、この状態のまま彼とご両親に全てを話してそこから謝るべきだと思うんですよ。
No, I'm going to listen to that again.
この本ただだから確かに今回の件正直に話すのなら最初からそうすればよかった話です。ただだからって最初に戻るのはなんか違う気がするんですよ。本当に彼と両親に申し訳ない思いと全てを正直に話して謝る覚悟があるんだったら、この状態のまま彼とご両親に全てを話してそこから謝るべきだと思うんですよ。
確かにそうですね。そうします。
よかった。助かります。
え？
私も絡まれるくだりをやらなくて済むんで。
そうですね。
何？どうしたんだよ急に。
今まで黙ってて本当にごめんなさい。嫌われるかもしれないけど、このまま言わずに結婚するのは明君にも両親にも申し訳ないし。嫌われるかもしれないけど、このまま言わずに結婚するのは明君にも両親にも申し訳ないし、私もきっと一生後悔すると思うから。
分かったよ。
本当にごめんなさい。
じゃあ行こう。
え？
運転手さん、お願いします。
じゃ
行くって？
ご両親のところだよ。
え？
謝りに行かなきゃ。
二人で？
うん。マリの親は俺の親にもなるわけだし。
いいの？
何が？
私の過去のこととか。
両親に迷惑かけたことはちゃんと謝るべきだよ。
私がレディースだった件は？
それは。
Ladies, I wonder if I mean it's ladies, but I mean, okay, wow. I guess that makes sense. Bosozoku. I mean, here obviously this refers to ladies right there. I mean, but as a colloquial, there you have it. So that's where sometimes just having the Japanese dictionary ain't the case. I mean, it kind of was here. You can kind of get the feeling. Yeah, she is referring to the fact of being in a female gang, but in this case, biker gang. Bosozoku.
私がレディースだった件は？
それは出会った頃から多分そうだろうなって思ってたよ。
え？なんで？
なんでって、だって普段からちょくちょく出てるし。
嘘。
俺と口論になった時の口調とか元。
That should be a theory, right? Or a dispute. 口論。俺と口論。
元ヤン、俺と口論になった時の口調とか元ヤン丸出しじゃん。
ダメなの？
丸出しじゃん。元ヤン丸出し。OK, cool. 丸出し。
元ヤン丸出しじゃん。
ダメならメールするって言ったじゃん。なんでそんなこともできねえんだよ、雑魚。
じゃあそう。
次からちゃんとしろよな。よろしく。
I don't think he would be talking to the CEO of a company like the CEO, basically your boss. I don't think he'd be talking, but maybe he liked it. But
マジで。
持ち物とかもそうだし、部屋なんか完全に元ヤンの部屋じゃん。
バレたの？
隠せてると思ったの？隠せてると思ったの？さすがに総長だとは思わなかったけどね。
not just that, but like the founding.
行き先はご実家でよろしいですか？
はい、お願いします。
いやー、人って見かけによりませんね。あの後マリさんはこれまでのことと今回のことをちゃんと謝って、その上で2人は無事結婚の了承を得たみたいです。
了承 to agree. I like that. 納得すること。事情を組んで。I don't know what 組んで is, but 納得すること。承知すること。acknowledge, agree, yeah. 認める。結婚の了承。
結婚の了承を得たみたいです。ほんと人って見かけによりませんね。あ、そうだ。パワースポットの写真撮りました。
There's the ladies
でも
game.
こっちの方が魔除けになるかもしれません。
魔除けに。
魔除けになるかもしれでもこっちの方が魔除けになるかもしれません。あ、私パシリじゃないですからね。あ、はい。生ビール。
今おじいちゃんそうおじいちゃんを生き返らせたりできます？
いなり寿司食べたいな。
Oh yeah, that inari sushi. Okay.
できます。
いなり寿司食べたいな。
どうしましょう、こんな時に限って。
砂糖？お砂糖買ったよね。ほんと急いでるんだよ。
ちょっと待った。
ちょっと待った。Oh wait. Well, okay. Kind of messed that up, but oh, life goes on. Keep forgetting about that part. Okay, wow, so we're at 48 minutes. So yeah, the previous one, even though I had a longer intro, it wasn't. It's still rough about saying, but it definitely took longer. It took me like almost an hour to get through. Whereas this one went by a lot faster since a lot of the words were kind of same. Even though I was kind of spending a little bit of extra time on a few of the things and going into a little bit of a discussion. Yeah, this was a fun episode. The next one is a little sadder. That'll be the one for tomorrow. But bittersweet. A bittersweet would be the better term for it. For some reason, I remember like talking about it. So why does it feel like I've already seen it? But yeah. Look forward. It's yeah, that's what I like about since these are episodic, you can actually say, hey, what are some episodes you like? What are the ones you don't like? But this one, I think most of the episodes are pretty good. Uh, Maybe the 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 affair one. That one is kind of depressing, so that one I can probably skip. There, the Gokon battle, that one was kind of funny, so that one's good. I actually like the one where it's dealing with the manga artist. I think that one was kind of funny, and it got really crazy. Like the number of times they're going back and bringing in more people as time goes on. So that makes it kind of funny, and it plays off of the previous episode with the battle. The Yeah, some of these are kind of good and kind of entertaining. It's just a good series. So again, I remembered I was recommended this a way back when. I enjoyed watching it just normally. So it's not too difficult to follow along, even without doing a let's read. But it's yeah, it's one I recommend, and yeah, I think it would be kind of interesting to study as well. I think you can get some pretty decent vocabulary and phrases from it. The it's kind of fun to listen to. He and the lead actor, him, he kind of it feels like a really entertaining voice to emulate for a person like myself, who's roughly around a similar age as he is, and more of a past personality. I kind of like talking like that, very smooth, and maybe learn to talk a bit more like learn a bit more of his cadence would be pretty good to copy. Since probably don't want to get too emotional in the way I speak. Uh, I have noticed, and I could be wrong, but I feel like if I try to talk like somebody else, I speak Japanese, probably I pronounce it a little better. I could be wrong because again, it's hard to it just feels easier to talk that way than if I'm trying to speak Japanese like just as I would normally speak Japanese. So trying to take on a slight persona or of the person that would say that line feels like I would say maybe it's like my brain is like it heard it that way, so it's going to say it that way, if that makes sense. Whereas if I'm just trying to think of something to say without practice, it comes out sounding very uh, different, very and badly pronounced, and maybe picking the wrong words as well. Hard to tell. But yeah, yeah, there's not too much to add to that. I, this what he was talking about. He Pashiri, uh, um, Boso, what's it? Boso Ryoku, uh, Boso Zoku, Boso Zoku, biker gang, ladies, female biker gang, Motoyan, delinquent. Um, Chimpira would be a delinquent, whereas Motoyan would be, and then previously former Yankee. Yankee is more of a term for a delinquent. You do get some of the slang to pick up, and again, there's so much slang. It's probably easier to pick it up through immersion than to try to think you need to learn it all. But it's interesting once you see it, it's like, okay, yeah. And then you start hearing it, and you pretty much then learn it through the immersion. But, it helps to like first look, so be willing to, and even there was a good example of for loan words, ladies is a loan word, but it obviously is a way different meaning now in Japanese as far as a colloquial expression. Yeah, it does mean ladies as in, the same word as similar word as in English, but in this case, lady bicycle gang member. Um, yeah, I wouldn't have guessed it. I mean, obviously, the only way through the context is through here, and you saw it's like it's frequent enough and it's common enough that, yeah, there you go. It's part of the lexicon. So yeah, make sure don't just take for granted a loan word. Don't remember it's in Japanese, so this is a Japanese use for it. And it doesn't mean that it is the same as what it meant in English or wherever the word previous came from. Especially though, again, like be very careful about that. Um, and yeah, don't think, oh, I already know that. Like, yeah, at least give it a little bit of effort to look it up real quick, just to make sure, just verifying that, yeah, it does mean what you think it means. And if you got a question like, hey, this isn't meshing with what, what's being said, hey, maybe check out. You might realize it can have a different meaning. That be willing to do that as well. That's what these let's reads are about. Because you do, by the way, I mean, you kind of notice that there are some words that just have multiple meanings because they have so many different uses. And it's like, but by looking up, say, oh, okay, yeah, okay, it can fit into that situation as well. Cool. Doesn't mean you're going to memorize that, but you're at least aware of it, and maybe when it happens again, you kind of recall the previous time it happened, and you got a better chance of just learning it almost naturally, as opposed to trying to force it through direct study and Anki. But if you use direct study and Anki, that works as well. That's just it's just a different avenue, another avenue to increase your knowledge of the language to help again increase the your chances of comprehending, making something more comprehensible, because you want to immerse yourself in a lot more materials like this. And, don't be afraid. It doesn't have to be like I talked to one guy. I don't know, he was weird though. He felt like he had to be something new each time. Like he couldn't like he said he had already seen all this anime, and it had to be a specific anime from the 80s, that style of anime. And he had already seen all those. Yeah, but have you watched it in Japanese? It doesn't matter. I watched it already. No, you haven't. You watch it in English. That's a whole different experience than watching in Japanese. It really is. Or watching it with English subtitles in Japanese is still a different experience than watching it in Japanese. I'm speaking from experience here, and other people can probably back it up. It just has a different feel. If for nothing else, because sometimes the translation is completely off, or it's just the person, the translator or laters translate. Probably it's a translator, one person, and they're just not a very good writer in the English language. Like they couldn't write a story, so that means their translations are horrible because they're just not a good writer. Yeah, that is technically correct, but as literature, which you kind of wanted to have a literary value, it sucks. And yeah, I've run into quite a few translations like that. Um, I think that Takenouchi was a good example of pretty poorly translated when I think back on it. Because I remember, again, the first time I watched it was with the English subtitles. Then I watched it again later, and it's like, it definitely was. They were definitely, one, they were misinterpreting a few things, and then their terminologies they used was just off. Same thing with GTO. The translation, it's like they were just using a dictionary, not even bothering to try to make it sound make it sound normal in English. It just wasn't there. Again, personal opinion. But again, it was a free fan translation, so what do you expect? But I think it's funny is that you get these people who are like maybe not the best at translate, because it's usually with the fans translation service, it's all about getting the translation out there as fast as possible, and that means that corners are cut. Instead of like putting out a quality product, because you won't be the first one out there. Then you get this shit that you got like with Attack on Titan, where the translation went like as expected of Peak Chan, exactly right, or something like that. It was like that's exactly right. Is it? It's like Sasuga Peak Chan, sono tori da. Which it means right as always peak. Just right as always peak. And there's probably don't even need a honorific there because it's essentially a higher ranked person talking to although yeah, it would be a higher ranked person talking to a lower ranked person. That doesn't mean you don't have to add the honorifics. You don't, and you definitely don't add Chan to everything in English because we don't use Chan in English. We just don't, unless we're talking about a actual Japanese character, you know. And even then, that's kind of off. But again, these weren't Japanese characters. These were essentially the equivalent of German soldiers in World War One. So, maybe you might be better off using honorifics, German honorifics. But even then, you don't want to do that because again, in English, we don't use Fräulein or whatever it is the German honorifics would be for young lady. Um, but that's a argument that goes with how translators should be done. But the big problem was again they want to get out early, and then the one that gets out early, that's the one people get familiar with, so they stick with it. And a lot of the conventions that these diehard fans feel like they want these. It's kind of weird. Like an argument was that, and I'm sorry to get into this. Sorry how it led to that, but it was something stupid as like there was like, oh, but you're not getting across the Japanese culture. Well, yeah, but you're not reading it in Japanese. So what do you care about You're reading it in English. If you want to learn their Japanese culture, at the very least, why are you? Yeah, but again, it's in English, so we don't have honorifics in English. Don't use that unless it's like there's no way around. So I'm like, we don't say little brother or big. Sometimes we would say little brother or big brother. We might say that, but maybe in reference to them, but not to their face. Just change your name. Like say in the English subtitles, just have it where they're saying their name. Um, that's fine. We might, obviously father or mother, you might hear that, but even politely, like in polite conversation, you would say father and mother. You wouldn't say mommy and pop, mama and papa. To them, you say mama and papa. So, which, but in Japanese, you'd actually say you wouldn't say, you'd say chichi and, um, and haha. That's a very honorific way of talking about your parents to strangers. It sounds like, oh no, that's informal. No, 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 no. It's very formal in reference if you're talking about them to strangers. Now it sounds super formal, if that makes sense. Because you remember the way conversation goes, you always talk down about stuff from your sphere of influence, and always talk up about stuff in the other person's sphere of influence. That's how that works. That's why it would sound very formal. Referring to your father as Chichi or your mother as haha. Even even though you would never call your mother or father that to their face. So that's and that's where and that's also the problem when you get with the learning Japanese when it dealt with honorifics, like something that you learned that these were. But again, like ani is a very formal way of referring to your brother, of referring to your brother to a stranger. It might be aniki or aniki. It might be that just because you're so used to saying that, so it sounds more casual to then refer to him that way to a stranger, if that makes sense. And it's something it's kind of difficult to pick up, and I don't. But that's just again, that's Japanese culture, and you don't need to replicate that in the English translation because it doesn't exist in English, so it doesn't make sense. And you're saying, oh, okay, you're going to watch this, but now you're saying that, but you want to require the people watching this to have knowledge of a language that they're not really caring about learning. They want to enjoy the animated show, and it's not an animated show set in Japan anyway. For example, for that one case, and even other cases, and so it kind of gets wrong. But if they want to learn it, well, again, the original show's there for them to then learn about it, and it's probably better than having a bunch of stupid translator notes as well, which you shouldn't. You can have translator notes to kind of like explain why this situation is actually meant to be humorous, or you know, I think a good example, even better, would be. I'm sorry getting into this. It's just that I remember it's like Neil Gaiman. He was trying to adapt the script, the subtitle script for Princess Mononoke, and he wanted to make sure he adapted it in a way to where it sounded good in English, but also relayed the story. It was keeping the faithfulness of the story, and even a few things he changes, like when he's saying like soup tastes like donkey piss, but in the Japanese, like saying like maybe the soup, are you trying to serve me soup or water? Something like that. I mean, I didn't see the Japanese version of this, but I think this is before I was learning Japanese. He was explaining that, and he was like saying, but yeah, but in the Japanese version, that's a very strong, that's a very, very insulting way of referring to anybody's type of soup, saying it tastes like water. Mizuki sai, or something like that. Um, and where in English, you got to add a different, like it's just you got to give it a stronger term to kind of get across the fact of how rude this guy is being about this person's, soup or what he's being served. That's, but again, that takes time and effort, and sometimes a bit of artistic skill that, let's face it, these are fan translation. People are doing it for fun. And okay, so again, I can understand. That doesn't mean like it's got to be done that way. There's no requirement. And we wanted to, and I've actually I've suggested to people who are like talking about they wanted to practice translating. I was like, translate something that's already been translated. Fucking do it again. And then compare your efforts to the other person or persons. There's probably more than one translation going out there. Say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make it to say, hey, you know what? I want as group translation. Let's go and revisit an anime that you really like and improve on the translation. Make it sound like as natural. Or maybe if you feel like uh, the subtitles should, because usually the subs aren't going to match the dubs anyway. If you feel the dub is actually really, someone actually put effort into the script for the dubbing to happen, because you're going to have professional voice actors read it. So you probably want to put some money, at least as much money into the person who wrote the script as it to the person who is going to be speaking out loud, and see if it matches. I don't know. I've never watched Attack on Titan in English, so I don't know but I have heard some clips of a few of the other anime, and it sounds like, hey, you know what? These people are kind of talking good. I've heard some bad ones. I've heard some really bad dubs. The Grave of the Fireflies was a horrific dub. Good Lord, that was. And the mother literally said, yes, yes. I mean, it is just like devoid of all emotion. It was just horrible. It was like an old lady or older lady trying to do the voice of the young girl. It was horrible. When famously that was a 3 or 4 year old, it was like a very young, it was a kid doing the character. So that you gave it a much more natural spontaneity. But instead it's just this lady acting, pretending to be a girl. It just sounds horrible. You can just tell it's a lady trying to sound like a baby girl. It doesn't work. Baby girl. It's like young girl, uh, preschool girl. Sorry for going to this whole thing about the subs and dubs and whatnot. It all came about looking for, what was it, some type of resource about a guy who said that he's worried, should he spend his time learning Japanese when he doesn't have, when he kind of screams because he watched all the anime already. It's like, yeah, you can rewatch it again. It's like he was refusing the whole idea of him rewatching something. It sounded like beyond his capability. Um, and it's like, okay, that's a self-imposed restriction. Sorry, I have no pity for people who self-impose restrictions like that. All right, especially something as petty as that. Just watch it again. If it's a good show, that means it stands up to a rewatch. If it sucks on the second time watching it, obviously it wasn't good the first time around. It was just it was just flashy. That was it. Whereas a lot of the stuff I've done these let's reads on, because I have to experience them multiple times. First time watching it like this, the experience of watching it again, the experience of listening to it on loop, or maybe watching it with my wife on TV, and maybe even later, like doing a read through of it again later on. If these were not entertaining, I would feel bored. It'd feel like a chore going through it. But no, these have actually been pretty good shows that I've picked for myself that worked for me. They may not work for you, and I understand that. Pick the stuff that works for you, but make sure it's something that, if you can, something that's been entertaining for you once or twice, if need be. When you first start this off, pick on something that you enjoyed watching the first time, even if you watched it with English subtitles, and go through it in Jap. I've done that. Like I said, GTO, first time I watched it was in English subtitles because I remember how bad the translation was. But you know what? It was a fucking blast the next time I watched it. Experience here as a let's read. And then, my wife and I watched it together, and she kind of enjoyed the episodes. I was surprised. I mean, it didn't seem like a type of show she would like, but she ended up liking it because it was actually a good story, and a good narrative as well. Um, some of them she doesn't like Hanayori Dango. She just doesn't, and I don't really care that much for it either. Now that I think about it, um, but the others, Rise no Kizuna, she loves it. It's a sad because it adds some very sad moments, but again, we enjoy watching it together, and I enjoy watching it. It's a good drama, and so pick stuff that's good that you can rewatch and enjoy it. If it's something you saw before in English, watch it again in hell. Fucking, I did that with Harry Potter. Holy shit! I read the books in English. Definitely. Saw the movies in English, definitely. But yeah, it was a blast actually going through that in Japanese. Be wanting to do that if you need to. There's so much material available for Japanese. You should not want for any of it. All right, just pick the ones that you think are going to be good. Don't that you know are good. Fucking pick the ones that you know are good. How's that? Or it could just be, what? Hey, go through those websites that kind of ranking. You kind of say, hey, you know what? This has been ranked pretty high. Like Attack on Titan is ranked pretty high. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood was rated very high. Violet Evergarden is rated very high. These are probably going to be good shows to try out. It's not a guarantee. Neon Genesis Evangelion is ranked very high. I fucking hated it. Well, okay, didn't hate it. It just was my least favorite of these things that I've done because most of the stuff I watched has been enjoyable. That one stood out for how much I didn't enjoy it. Similar with Death Note, it just wasn't that good. It wasn't my thing. It just didn't click with me, and I'd seen that before. I never really in English. Now that I think about it, I mean, I've seen the movies barely. I didn't really care. I mean, again, just it's hard to sit through a Japanese movie, especially one that's trying to adapt from the manga. That it wasn't as bad as Attack on Titan movies, but it was bad. And I thought the Netflix adaptation actually wasn't too bad, but they made some bad choices. I mean, but it wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be. But again, it's not like anything I would recommend it. But yeah, just pick it, enjoy it in Japanese, do it, make it work, have fun. That's it. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. All right, this has been Let's Read Japanese. Suteki na Sentaxi. Episode 7, Part 2. I'll be back with Episode 8 tomorrow. Thank you all very much. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. For those of you on YouTube, by the way. If you enjoyed this series, like to see more, subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy what I'm doing to help the Japanese learning community, the link to the Patreon, you can support it that way. There's also links to the website and the community Discord. Finally, if you'd like to hire me really like to hire me for technical assistance or one-on-one advice to walk you through, get yourself started using the various resources that I talk about. The hourly rates and the payments are via the Patreon, are on the Patreon. But a direct link is in the description as well. Thank you all very much. It's been enjoyable. Sorry for the long chat at the end. There was no chat. Sorry, I was just talking to myself. But again, have fun, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, it is getting dark. Later, guys.